Hi, guys. Welcome to Tickers, the new series on Limitless podcast. It's where we discuss a lot of the listed companies on the JSE. We did an episode before, a couple episodes actually. We spoke about RPL and we spoke
Edufocal.
about Edufocal. Yeah, so you guys can check those out. But today we'll be speaking about Main Event, all right? Main Event Entertainment Group,
Or
ticker known
MEEG.
as MEEG, yeah, MEEG. Right. Very fun company to talk about, Preston. I see you've been doing a lot of partying recently, right? Jokes.
Underground research.
On the ground research, yeah. In Ochi, right? Good times. But without further ado, let's begin.
Well, just
So
want to wait. We should just remind the people that the reason that we picked this stock is because you guys actually voted for it. So we have a poll. We'll put the link in the description. You guys can actually pick the next stock that we review. So all you have to do is put the ticker in, the name of the company, and we'll pick that stock. And if enough people pick it, we will actually review it. So yeah.
Yeah, and Mijo's the most popular, so we're going with Main Event today. And so what is Main Event? So Main Event, it's an entertainment company. Let's say that, right? They do a lot in the whole entertainment space. They're actually known as like the giant in the space, right? They do marketing, they do events, promotion, and execution. And so they manage all of that within a company. And I guess, Preston, you can probably share screens of our Notion page so everybody can see some of the things we've done in terms of some of the research we've kind of outlined. So it looks like a presentation. It's literally just our shared Notion page where we put some things about some companies, very high level, very high level. We don't go in detail at all, but it's just for you guys to kind of outline. So if you click money, you'll see what they do, right? So a lot of events and so on. They actually started in 2004, I believe, and were listed in 2017. There are two co-founders. It was Richard Bear, who I've actually met. I've actually known Richard Bear for most of my life. Funny story. His son went to prep school with me. We were best friends at the time. Jonathan Bear, big up Jonathan, anywhere you
Which
are,
prep
bro.
school?
Mona Prep. Yeah. Probably the reason why our graduation was the best graduation in terms of like as an event. It was crazy.
Oh, they put it on like.
But I don't know. I was too young to know. I was grade 6. But I mean, we had like a confetti machine and everything. Like no one's ever seen a graduation that big at the school at that time. So it's likely. And yeah, it's him and Auntie Sharon. Good set of people. Great family. But yeah, so it was Richard Bear, who is now the vice president, and I think he's the COO of the company. And there's also Solomon Sharp, who is a CEO, and he was another co-founder as well. And it was listed 2017, February 2017. IPO happened in January, I think it opened. And so, yeah, I mean, what they do now, I mean, as you can see, they do a lot of events, and they specifically do a lot of the big events in Jamaica. Big events like, we're talking Sumfest, all right? We're talking like, wow, I'm blanking out. They do a lot of big events though, in terms of, I think did they also do a lot of big events, you know. They also did I think they did Rum Festival. They did quite a bit of, they do a lot of, their target is big events, not necessarily the smaller events. They used to do a lot more smaller events, but now they're focused on the high quality, those large events with much greater profit margins. So there's that. They also do digital signage for a lot of the events as well, right? So they create a lot of the digital signage, and I guess if you can click it, you would probably be taken to their website. You could actually probably just go to their website and see. But their website has a lot of the things that they do in terms of the digital signage.
So they set up like a screen like this, like a multi-screen where you connect multiple TVs and stuff.
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of stores sometimes have this. Like if say you go to like Sovereign, this could have been in.
So
but
even
even this Island Grill restaurants.
Yeah, advertising and so on. So they do that kind of thing, marketing and advertising as well. So their agency unit, they create and execute a lot of like marketing campaigns, which is also another revenue stream for them. But in terms of advertising, they do a lot of digital signage, and it's pretty high margin, right? Pretty high margin. In fact, I'm pretty sure on I think you quoted it in one of the Mayberry investor forums. I think Solomon Sharp said it. Yeah, see it there. We have some clients we're working on behind the scenes with the whole digital signage that gives us high margin and passive income. So if they,
I don't know how they set it up. Like, is it like you pay a fee, we install it, we do that, and then you pay like a monthly fee?
Maybe, or if it depends on probably for the duration, because you'd have to likely rent their equipment. So they own a lot of the equipment that they have, and you'd likely have to rent it. And yeah, you probably have to pay them to either do the graphics or put up the graphics, or if you have graphics yourself, and so on. But that's a great way for them to make money. Audio, visual, and lighting services is also another thing. So when you think of an event, you have to meds the whole. Like if you guys have ever been to, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have been to like live events, maybe concerts or so on, right? You have to have the project manager, because it's like a project management. It's like a project. You have to be planning. There's a planning phase, you have an execution phase and so on, and you have to close out the project and so on. So it's you need like a project manager. You need people on the ground, the technical staff, the support team, the people setting up the decor, right? You're going to need people setting up and dealing with the AV as well, the audiovisual services, lighting as well. They do a lot of that. If you click that link, Preston, I think that carries you to our website that spoke about them investing in very high quality speakers, right? So they spent a bag on a lot of these speakers and so on. So they do invest in a lot of equipment. In fact, when they were IPOing back in 2017, if you look in the prospectus, I think one of the things they invested in outside of like working capital was equipment. They raised 120 mil on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and part of that actually went to equipment and so on. So, well, you want to read that? What Solomon Sharp said?
He said what's this? He said we're the champions of Jamaica now with this Martin audio system. We can dominate any venue in the Caribbean. And he said this 2019. And when you were saying that, I just remembered another big event that they did. Was it last year or the year before last year when Burna Boy had his concert? I think that was 2022.
Don't think. I'm not entirely sure if I don't think they did Burna Boy's concert. I think that was, and if I remember, Popcorn having a dispute with I think her name is Sharon Burke, I believe, which is sound. I'm trying to remember. I soon tell you. It is Solid Agency. Solid Agency. So if you look up Solid, I think Solid Agency is the one that did it. Yeah. Popcorn actually was cursing out, Sharon Burke and their company, because at that concert, we were at that concert. That concert was great, but I think the biggest issues were there were some audio, technical difficulties. Because I remember when Popcorn came out on stage, right? We're like, yeah, Unruly Boss forward, and then we couldn't hear anything from him. And after a while, he didn't hear us saying, we can't hear anything. So the whole crowd started to boo him. But it's not that he was performing bad, we just couldn't hear him. So they weren't really booing him. They were booing, the technical team. So I hope he does it. He did feel that way. He left the stage and everything, and he was cussing and everything. It was a bunch of stuff. But I mean, rightfully so, because this is the biggest concert that's ever happened in Jamaica. I don't know if it's bigger than Buju's concert, but it was a huge concert. Definitely a huge concert. Yeah, I guess you can look through all of that. But yeah, see, solid agency. They managed that event. It was a main event. So I know main event does a lot because I've seen them do a lot of liquor parties and so on. Not even liquor parties. And they're in carnival as well. They do a lot of carnival events. They When I went to the grill the other day, there was like this big paint party in the grill. I saw main event everywhere. Right. So main event is they're everywhere. There are a lot of places. They're not at like Dream Weekend though. And we'll talk about their competitors and so on soon. But they are in a lot of places. Right. And so I think they've positioned themselves well to be a player for these big, concerts. Because I think if any big artist, let's say Beyonce were to come to Jamaica, right? I would choose main event because they have the equipment, like the large scale equipment necessary. They have the expertise. They have huge teams as well. I think they are the biggest player in the space. So likely, a lot of these international companies, or international artists or so on, would choose main event just because they can handle that capacity. And they've done things like that before.
But then you don't think, so why didn't Burna Boy choose them then? Because you're saying that Burna Boy went with another person, but Burna Boy is someone who's pretty big. So the fact that someone could, it did, I guess it didn't go as well as you said it should have, but
yeah,
they may not necessarily be the biggest for longer. The thing is that because the other companies are, and I think we'll get into the competitors, because the other companies are private, it's going to be kind of hard to compare like the size and stuff like that. Like you can say, they are making 10% more revenue, 10% less. Sometimes in articles they may hint,
try to find stuff like that. Like, the size of other companies and so on. It's very hard to find that. I agree. Yeah. I don't know why someone would necessarily choose one over the other. I guess based on track record. Also, I guess the fact that they are a public company, so they, as a public company, you kind of have to fix up certain things. The operations do have to be good. You have to be able to be producing financial statements quarterly and so on. So there's a level of, you have your audited financials. There's a level of due diligence. There's a level of, it's just like another level above like a more private company when their things aren't as public. So you're not really entirely sure what they can do, even if they have, put on big events and so on. So yeah, we can go into some of the competitors, but before we do that, M Style XP, interesting name. But if you look at their page, even their Instagram and so on, so for me it's more of a niche brand for main event. They do more unique and innovative styles. It focuses on like decor and like it just looks almost like the boutique arm. I don't know how else to describe it, but yeah, it really looks good. I know they focus on specific type of events, more luxury type of events, as you can see, weddings especially. If you Maybe you could check their Instagram. Their Instagram shows a lot of weddings as well and so on. So it's where they kind of really flash that creative design.
Look at this with the light. You see my screen with the lights?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And chairs.
Looks really nice.
And so they even do even other listed companies, they service some of them. The NCB had put on an event. They assisted them with the design of that.
Oh yes, they do a lot of corporate events as well. That's very true. They do a lot of corporate events. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we can talk about some of their competitors as well. So within that ecosystem, there are quite a bit of players in the in that space. I put Starlight. If you click SNB, so I remember Starlight. Growing up, you remember. I don't know if you'd ever seen Starlight, but they had like a star. And anyways, Starlight actually merged with a company called Blueprint, right? And as you can see, Norbrook Equity Partners is a part of it. So I don't know if you want to read out that. Yeah.
So yeah, Norbrook Equity Partners has announced an investment of 600 million in SMB Creative Group, the product of a merger between Blueprint Events and Starlight Productions. No, 600 million. Oh, you meant like that's prevented that, like, if without like private equity, they could have had to possibly list. Because junior market limit is 500 right now, and then hoping to increase to 750. It's still 500 for now. That's supposed to increase, but it hasn't actually come in yet.
Yeah. But look at that, bro. Like, they said $250 million a year enterprise. For this is, I think that's still Starlight. That's what they grew the company from, startup to $250 million a year. And I guess that kind of puts some perspective on, maybe I guess Main Event and so on, because Main Event, in terms of like profits or revenue or so on. So even revenue, the quarter that ended recently, which was April 30th of this year, they made about $400 million in revenue. And this company, made, I guess, Starlight itself at the time, well, the time that Gleaner article would have come out, which I think was sometime, was that last year that happened? Or the year before? Well, yeah, need more recent data on these private companies, to be honest.
You're comparing the revenue. So you're saying in 2022, you're saying Blueprints by itself was 250 million revenue a year.
Yeah.
And you could say, I guess we don't know what Starlight itself was. And now,
but if we do compare Main Event, though, Main Event's revenue in 2022 was $1.5 billion. So you can tell they're a much bigger player. Like, much bigger player. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, bro, there are a lot of people in that whole space. There's the same Solid agency, that did the Burna Boy concert. There's Phase 3 Productions. I know some people might know Phase 3. Phase 3 does a lot of events as well. And there's Phenomenal. There are a lot of other smaller players in the market, but yeah, I mean, Blueprint and Starlight, I know that they were also bigger players in the market, and the fact that they've merged, yeah, that was a big move by them. So
you mentioned that you brought to the point about SNB. This could be a sign that they may actually list eventually too, because if you look at Norbrook Equity, for some context, Norbrook Equity is they are a large shareholder in Mailpack, and they had lent, I know that they had, I think, taken a stake in Mailpack.
Yeah, they have a stake in a lot of companies.
And then, well, a lot of public companies?
No, not public.
So this is the first one I think that like Express. I remember they were talking about Express. And if you look here, you see my screen, Norbrook Equity. Norbrook Equity Partners, they own 72% of Mailpack. They're the largest shareholder. They're the controlling shareholder in Mailpack.
And then Mailpack just recently buy their biggest competitor, My Carrot Express. Norbrook, I remember doing a deep dive on Norbrook, and they owned like Apollo Taxi Services. They own some water brands. They own Express Fitness.
Yeah, see them here.
Yeah, you can see them.
Which ones, So I know Express.
Pure National Ice.
I know they have two ice companies. Happy Ice. This is Starlight, SMB Creative Group. Jamagua. Oh.
Yeah, they own Jamagua.
Interesting. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the SMB group possibly eventually listing.
Same. True.
And they can get that tax break.
Yeah. Yeah. Which main event is well, they have a few more years left of half tax, 50% of the tax. So, I
You
mean,
want to explain that?
for those who
Mm.
don't really know that, when you list on the junior market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, for the first 5 years, you do not pay corporate income tax, which is about 25% of your profits. And then for the next 5 years, you pay half of that, which would be about 12.5%. And there are other, you know, tax benefits as well. But yeah, those are the major tax benefits for listing on the junior stock exchange. And you usually see a lot of these junior market companies when they list, their profitability skyrockets because, they get to save that 25% tax that they were paying before. So who knows? Who knows what may happen in that space? But it is a pretty competitive space. Because even now, if you look at some of main events numbers, they have fallen a bit from last year. 2023 was a great year for them. Coming into 2024, you kind of do see a decline in a lot of their numbers. I guess you'll bring up some of their, even revenues have fallen a little bit. Profits have definitely fallen as well. So last year was a great year for them. Much better year for them. And it's interesting when you look at some of the articles surrounding, why they said certain things happen and so on. Because in that first quarter, you expect a lot more based on, like Carnival, right? Carnival happens in that quarter for them because their quarter ends, I think,
Second quarter, you
April.
mean?
The second quarter, sorry, because that quarter ends April, right? But
So it's
it's
February,
less.
March, April.
Yeah. But if you notice, the revenues are less than last year. And in some of the articles, what I've been
20% less.
yeah, right? And so they were saying, I remember in one article they were saying, the activity for Carnival 2024 was lower than normal. But when you check some of the data on some of the articles, last year Carnival brought in about $4.6 billion. And this year Carnival brought in over $5 billion. So is it that, people are not using main event as much? Is it just the, macroeconomic stuff with, higher interest rates? So, sometimes when you have to finance a lot of these businesses, if you're borrowing, right, because interest rates are so high, you may have to pay back higher, it's higher interest rates. So yeah, you owe them a bit more based on the higher rates. So that can constrain a lot of the profits and narrow the margins, you know. Also, a lot of companies, especially now in this high inflation, high interest rate environment, they might be slashing certain costs. When there are hard times, a lot of companies, the first thing they cut is their marketing budget, their advertising spending, a lot of those kind of things. So it could be a reflection of that. And you could do some more research and deeper dive to see why exactly that happened, in terms of the lower revenues. But I believe a lot of these things, there are a lot of factors that brought main events revenues further down. So yeah, but the company is still strong, still recording profits, still pretty strong, but a lot of it has decreased. So yeah, I still think it's a pretty good company. There's also something I want to touch on in terms of their AGM. So their AGM happened recently, got postponed by Hurricane Beryl, but it did happen last month in July 2024. And one thing they did that was pretty interesting is they increased their authorized share capital. So I don't know if it's usually what they call and what the chairman called a
So
preemptive move.
what is Authorized share capital?
So it's the amount of shares. So, okay. You have authorized, you have a lot of different, terms. You have authorized share capital. There's ordinary shares as well. Basically, it's how much they can issue. So ordinary is issued shares already issued, and authorizes how much more room basically you have to like issue more shares in maybe
Or
like a
create more
raise
shares.
or create more shares basically. So before it was the authorized share capital was 320 mil, but their ordinary shares was 300 mil, so they could have only issued an extra like 19, 20 mil, about 20 mil. But now I'm not sure if they increased it to unlimited, but I know they definitely, yes, it is increased to unlimited. I remember them saying from the AGM that they increased it to unlimited. So usually when you see a lot of companies do that, they might be planning something. There might be a raise on the cards, whether a rights issue, whether an APO, whatever it may be. It does signal to the market that they might be thinking of going for some more cash. They might be looking to the equity market for some more cash. So, I mean, we will see. Who knows? We will see. I mean, they have quite a bit of room. They raised 120 mil back in 2017 for their IPO. So they do have quite a bit of room to raise more money. So interesting times ahead for them.
You're saying that if without the junior market limit increase, they could technically raise like up to well, how much you said they raised so far? Let me just
I
check
remember
the
them
report.
raising 120 mil, but their share capital is 300. Yeah, I guess we can just check the report and see.
Yeah, so 103 million. So even with the 500 million limit, which is currently the limit, they could still issue almost $400 million. Yeah. And then the interesting part is that I remembered when they asked about, you notice that when the annual report was released, I think the annual report was released April 2nd, and I think the news about the share capital increase came out like end of March, I think. So it was like once that dropped and they're like, hey, Jamaica, because I remember I found it. So if you look here, the JC actually had put out a notice about it. They were saying here, March 15th. So it was literally a few days or like 2 weeks or so after. Because they could have technically increased it. Like main event could have said, okay, they could have always, even before this, they could have raised the money. They could have raised more money. They could have raised, as we said, almost 400 million. But it was like, okay, it's now going up to 750. Now we can even raise more money. Could possibly raise almost 650 million. Let's possibly have that the opportunity. Because the thing is, if you think about it, when it is properly lifted and there's going to be more companies wanting to do it, but you don't want to be necessarily, if you think about it, that money is kind of sitting down now, where we've said, oh, high interest rates. So people are putting their money in like less risky stuff, not less equities. When eventually interest rates drop, I don't know when that will be. It could be 1 year from now. It could be 6 months from now. We don't really know. But whenever that happens, the money that is in these is benefiting from the high interest rates is no longer going to benefit from that, and they're going to want to go into other things like equities. So there's going to be gradually moving and shifting towards equities and other riskier assets, I guess. And so I don't think you'd want to be the person who then has to do the shareholder meeting and then has to get the approval, because that takes time. So it makes sense that they're like, okay, we know that this gonna drop at some point. And if you look at it too, another thing that we mentioned that we should look at the shareholder list. I'm sure you know who is going to do who would do the APO or rights issue.
Yeah.
You notice here the second largest shareholder is Mayberry Jamaican Equities, which is Mayberry stock portfolio. SVL, also owned heavily by MJE. They together own about 20% of the company. So
yeah,
you just big up Dr. Phil once again.
big up Dr.
Don't put
Phil.
his name there, Doctor. He said they should add the doctor there. Look at this new feature. It seemed like my 1JA compared to the previous quarter, January, he increased his stake. Buying is believing, Phil. Buying is believing. He's the only. Well, actually, MJE increased their stake too. Yeah, he actually bought more than MJE. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Because the thing is, I remember even looking at.
It's crazy to say Jonathan too. Jonathan's is number 4. Big up, John.
Oh, yeah. Nice. nice. That's your friend. Does he? Nice.
Yeah, he invests. He also works. I think he's like one of the youngest managers at like JMMB. Big up, John, if you're watching. Yeah.
Yes, but there was I watched the Mayberry did a forum a few days, was it last week? And they spoke, I think it was Dan Theak spoke about them. Like I think he was saying like in terms of the number of deals they have on the table, possibly next year. I think he was saying, we have possibly like 15. I remember he said 15 deals or 15 IPOs or something like that. I mean, I don't know if they'll actually reach cause they always say, okay, there's this amount. And a lot of times it doesn't end up being like that. But
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if, it ends up being maybe main event is one of those rights issues or APOs.
True. I mean, what do you think they would do with the money? Like if they're going to the market for the money, they have to tell us what they want to do with the money. That's always a thing. So what could they possibly be doing?
I mean, so one of the things I had looked at, they let me see if I can find it. I think it was 2021. You notice SVL has a stake in them.
Yes.
They mentioned that they wanted to form a joint venture with SVL, one of the arms of SVL, a 50-50 joint venture company. Let me see if I can find it. And up to now, I still haven't really seen anything come from that. Look when this was. The thing is, this was May 2021. So the Disaster Risk Management Act, which had stopped parties and stuff, which had really messed them up. This was before that lifted, so there weren't really many events happening. But I'm surprised that it's been 2 years since that lifted. Parties have been happening; they've been making more money, but I haven't really seen any update on that. So I was wondering if some of that could go into this joint venture. I also saw in the past. So I mentioned, we'll form a production company. Yes, Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment. So there could be more ties in with like K Manos. I know SVL is trying to push K Manos.
Yeah.
Like developing
it. The CEO is of the CEO of Main Event is the chairman of SVRL. Yeah, there are lots of synergies with Supreme Ventures, to be honest. So,
and I don't know if maybe the same point you're mentioning about sometimes even buying better equipment. It could be that there's some parties. Suppose, for example, you mentioned Solid was the one who did Burna Boy.
Yeah,
was the reason that they chose Solid that maybe they didn't have. Maybe Solid had some new machinery or new speakers or some things that they couldn't do. And maybe they're like, hey, we don't want to miss out on an event like that. So maybe we need to up our production game even more. And I also saw in the past they were speaking about looking into other countries. I don't know if that's something else, because they were saying that they could either buy another company. Let me see if I can find that.
I mean, we've seen that before. The mergers and acquisitions, that's another way of growing. You could literally just buy a new company. Or buy one of their competitors.
I think a joint venture they were saying. Like in another, like say something like Trinidad, where if they're like, Trinidad is a big It's really big on parties and stuff like that.
And carnival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Wait, what else you were thinking?
I feel like we discussed this. I'm not sure if we discussed this on the podcast or just between us, but I've always thought that with the partnership with Supreme Ventures and so on, and the call for a space like an entertainment district, I feel like they could invest in an entertainment district and just buy the land and own the whole vertical. Caymanos is right out there. I feel like that's a good area in terms of like that ferry area, that Caymanos area, and so on. If Main Event could just buy a plot of land somewhere out there, I mean, the road that highway, I think is what Mandela, it's 3 lanes, right? So it's good in terms of like traffic. To get like it's very accessible. It's an accessible area. 1, 2, they would own the whole vertical. They would own not just the land, which they could lease or have other people as an event space for other events and so on. So they could earn off of renting it. But they also own all the equipment. They own they have the operations, the employees, the stage managers, XYZ. And there's nowhere in Kingston that's an entertainment zone that's big enough to hold like a very large concert. In terms of the type of events that Main Event is going for, in my opinion, I feel like it's perfect for them because they're going for really large events. They're not going for anything small. They're going for very large events. And I feel like Kingston could use more like a proper entertainment space. Not just mass camp, not stadium. Like we need to have a place designated for entertainment. Yeah.
I know that we're doing one in Portmore, Jam World. 24-hour entertainment zone.
Fair. But you see the government purchased that property and so on. I think my problem with that is a lot of people are waiting on the government to be the ones to do that. When if there's a good private entity that's just willing to, buy that real estate asset, swoop up that space and just run it, I think that would do us very, very well. Because look, Rum Festival, I don't know if you've been seeing a lot of the discourse about Rum Festival moving to Montego Bay. I think the major discourse was, it wasn't just the problem wasn't that they moved Rum Festival to Montego Bay. I think it was because it happened during the week and not like on a weekend or so on. That was the major issue. But still, Rum Festival was held at Hope Gardens. But that was not a big enough space for Rum Festival. And also the logistics of Hope Gardens and having to shut off by midnight because, Hope Gardens has a very strong association and, it's a residential area as well around it. So there's always going to be like noise complaints and so on. So it's very limited to, the type of events, the time, the logistics, all of that. Hope Gardens is not the ideal event space that a lot of people are looking for. So I think they could just buy the land. If they raise a couple $100 million, they could just buy a decent plot of land. That's just my thoughts. Yeah, those are my thoughts for Main Events in terms of future plans. Who knows what they would do when they raise that money? They could also do a stock split as well in the future. There's so much they could do. There's so much Main Event can do. So if you look at even the revenues, they are a bit, I don't want to say lumpy, but and I wanted to see if there was any seasonality to them because you have carnival season, you have different seasons, you have the summer season, which is usually packed with a lot of events and so on. But when you actually look at the revenues quarter on quarter, you realize it fluctuates. It fluctuates a lot. So who knows? Who knows? but decent company. And they have the capacity to do more. They have been doing very well so far in terms of leading the space and the type of productions. Like once you I think in the entertainment space, since I'm kind of in the entertainment space, you hear like when people say main event, they're like, oh, it's really like, they always talk about good quality, but it's also very expensive, people say, right? But you pay for the quality. Like you really do pay for the quality. So yeah, those are my 2 cents on MEEG. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'm sure they'll continue. It's like, I think the party space, you just need to have certain, it's like relationships and certain partnerships with certain, just be able to, you know, if say you always do a party every year and the party have, or you partner with a company that does parties say every quarter, you just want to make sure that you keep that relationship, you keep building on your product so that someone won't break your foot and take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really what they need to do. You're seeing all these other players, and I think they definitely need to be. I'd definitely watch out for SNB. I wouldn't be surprised if they list within the next 3 years, 5 years.
Agreed.
I just hope main event doesn't become complacent, and I don't think they would. They have kind of the big brother like of Mayberry SPL. That's definitely a big possible opportunity. I think that if, especially like you're mentioning about the SPL partnership and how they could kind of help with some maybe like those horse racing events or something like that. I mean, I'm not really into horse racing and stuff, but there's a lot, I think, possibilities. They just have to execute, and the fact that they're listed, I think, is a big benefit. You mentioned they had the tax break, they have the opportunity to raise, banks will more likely lend them money. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch what they do.
Yeah, agreed. You're right about the entertainment industry. It's very much relationship based. So it's just really if you have good relationships. Because if you look at like Dream Weekend, I think Starlights, they're the ones that have been doing Dream from Dream's inception, I believe. So yeah, and I don't necessarily see them not using the same people they've been using for over a decade. So yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on where they want, but they already know where they want to go and what they want to do. They said very large scale events, big events, you know. So yeah, let's just see if they can execute. And I wouldn't be surprised if even if they don't go for my dream idea of, buying that big plot of land for entertainment district, they could still just buy their competitors. So we'll see.
I don't know if they should take on the risk of the land though. Maybe it could be even SBL buys it, and cause that's I guess the benefit of a joint venture. You don't have to take on everything yourself. So SBL could buy the land, or maybe SBL has some of the land and then they just
buy it from them or something. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Guys, if you like this episode and like this type of content, or we just talk about companies or perspective and just kind of analyze them, let us know in the comments below what you'd want us to do next. I'm pretty sure we'll drop a link for the
so you can just type in which stock you want us to review.
Yeah, perfect. And if you like this episode, leave a like. If you loved it, subscribe, please, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Limitless out.
Peace.